Welcome to Tapped In with Tony. I am your host, Tony Bogan. And joining us tonight, I have a special guest. He is the founder of the QB Accelerate program that has trained many successful QBs across Ohio and other states, Brad Maendler. Brad, thank you for joining me today.
Tony, thanks for having me.
Not a problem. I've seen some of the stuff that you've been doing as far as training quarterbacks, and one of your more prominent QBs, Drew Allar, is currently starting at Penn State and is a surefire NFL prospect down the line.
Yep, he's doing well. They got a big one coming this weekend with the whiteout against Iowa. So,
oh yeah, yep, that's going to be a good one, and it's going to be a good weekend of college football just in general. So many good matchups.
No doubt.
And tell us a little bit about your background. How did you end up getting started? Did you play football in high school? Where are you from originally?
Yeah, I'm from Minnesota, and I was one of those kids who was pretty big at a young age. So we had weight limits, and I didn't really get a chance to play quarterback until I was a sophomore in high school. But throwing a football really had always been sort of an obsession. And I know where it happened. There was a football camp at the time called the Tommy Kramer Ahmad Rashad football camp. And those who are NFL fans from the late 70s and early 80s, they would know Tommy Kramer and Ahmad Rashad. But this was one of those camps where you went the whole week. And this is when I was sort of first getting an opportunity to play quarterback. And one of the days it rained. So they brought us inside and they showed us a bunch of NFL films. And one of the films was showing the Raiders, with that, with John Facenda, doing his narration, the music playing, and they're slowing it down, and watching Kenny Stabler throw a spiral just like mesmerized me. And so ever since then, I've just been just obsessed with, throwing a football. And when, it was I don't know, 2007, 2008, I'm coaching youth football, and I've got a kid on my team who's our quarterback, and he's having issues throwing a spiral. And I worked really hard at that. I played in high school and college, and so it was easy to me. But breaking it down for like a fourth grader was challenging. And I just thought to myself, okay, I need to have a better answer than just roll it off your fingers. So I went down this rabbit hole and continue to go down this rabbit hole of just trying to, perfect not only throwing mechanics, but just general quarterback play. And so in December of 21, I decided, after a long career in corporate America, that I was going to start QB Accelerate. And so we started it, and it's growing. It's growing very fast, and very excited about things that are happening here in the future. And it's all systems go from here.
Awesome. And I noticed that you mentioned you played QB in high school. And where did you play your college ball at?
So I played at Bemidji State University, which is in northern Minnesota. It's a Division II school. Boy, my last year would have been 87.
How'd the team do when you played your 4 years, and what system were you guys under when you played?
We were a very traditional 21 team with, fullback, tailback, tight end, under center. We did some shotgun. Prior to going to Bemidji State, I played at a junior college in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Inver Hills Junior College, and we threw 40 to 50 times a game. So I had a tailback at Bemidji State that was an All-American, and he ended up playing for the Bears a little bit, Al Wolden. And so I did a lot of handing off to him in my time there, but had a lot of fun, built relationships, and, loved it. But, when it was time to be over, it was over. And I took a job right out of college coaching quarterbacks at Inver Hills. We had a great team there, and had one of the kids get drafted by the Patriots as a receiver. Our quarterback played in the Arena Football League for like 10, 11 years. His name was Jeff Lutz. So we had a lot of success there, but then the school discontinued the football program. And I felt like, okay, it's time for me to get a real job, quote, real job. And so for over 25 years, I've been in the performance improvement space, working with big companies, helping them sell, message their value better and sell value and those types of things. So that's it's been kind of a dual side-by-side career of the corporate thing and then football always being there. And then when I got into coaching youth football, that's when that really started to take off.
Gotcha. And when you did coach in college after your playing days were over, how did you see the game like in the early 90s as a coach as compared to as a player? And how did that help you guys like throughout the years until the football program was discontinued?
Well, Inver Hills had a reputation of throwing the football, and that's what we did. We threw on average 40 to 50 times a game. And, back in the late 80s, that was a ton. It's still a ton. And so the head coach at the time was my quarterback coach at Bemidji State, the head coach at Inver Hills. His name was Brent Jeffers. And he left and went to Southwest Minnesota State and became the OC and eventually the head coach there. But he was always a passing game guy. And, he was great at breaking down the passing game. We watched film. I was fortunate after he left my senior year, we brought a couple of guys in from BYU who at that time were known as, the passing game, the premier passing team.
The air raid.
Country. Yeah, I mean, it was the early parts of the air raid. The air raid is like a conglomeration of some different styles, but certainly the impact Norm Chow had and how that trickled into the air raid, absolutely 100%. Y Cross would be an example of an air raid staple that really was sort of birthed out of BYU. So I was just very fortunate that I got a chance to be in that for 1 year. It was so much fun. And when they discontinued the program and I got away from it, I really did miss it. And I knew I was going to get back to it at some point. So.
Gotcha. And how would you say that the game of quarterback, the position has evolved over the years? Because even back in the 80s and 90s, you didn't have running QBs like you have now.
No.
The majority of QBs were tossing it 500, 600 yards.
Yeah. It's obviously changed a ton. The athleticism in the position now is so exciting. More freedom for the quarterback, a little bit more of a rope, right? To create off platform and those kinds of things. And honestly, the things that quarterbacks are doing now in terms of off schedule plays and using their athleticism to extend the play and let guys scramble to open space and then throw it, when the play has sort of been exhausted, or maybe there was pressure right away and the quarterback got chased out. Just seeing what's happening now with the athleticism and the way that we can create these explosive plays by just being more aware of keeping our eyes downfield and practicing, scrambling and scrambling in terms of receivers going to specific spots. And it's just such a fun game to watch now. I mean, it's never been a better time to be a quarterback in terms of what we're asking kids to do.
Absolutely, because I remember Pat Mahomes is one of many examples. In Texas Tech, he was part of all they did was just throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball. And now you see him taking off and running on occasion.
Yeah, he's fun one to watch, no doubt about it.
And going back to the QB Accelerate program, how did that come about? And who were some of your, in addition to Drew Allar, who's playing at Penn State right now, who are some of your first kids who came through the program?
Well, I've been training quarterbacks for 15 years, basically. So it was a side hustle. it was something that I was a high school coach for Hudson from 2010 to 2016. I coached quarterbacks, and we were really good. We were a really good running team that threw the ball really well. And so we had, good athletes, disciplined kids, did some really cool things there. And so I was, at the time I was coaching in Hudson. I was doing a handful of quarterbacks on the side, from other schools. And then I had my, my real job, so to speak. And then, a wife and 2 kids. And so it was, it was pretty hectic times, but I was loving every minute of it. So I've had, there are kids that date back to literally 2006 when I kind of first started playing around with this, that I can point to. One of them was Mitch Guadagni. He was one of my first quarterbacks. I started training him in 7th grade. He played for me at Hudson, and in the 2014 season, we finished the year ranked number 1. And then we ended up losing in the semifinals to St. Ed's, just a fantastic St. Ed's team. But Mitch was my quarterback, and he was all Ohio. And then he committed to Toledo, and played there for 4 years. Was a starter for 2 years. Had some injuries, that kind of thing. But he was one of my very first kids. And then really, I learned a ton by pretty much taking on all comers. Like anybody who wanted to train, like I wanted to train them. But simultaneous to that, I got hooked up with a company called the Quarterback Academy. That was led by Darren Slack and based out of Orlando, Florida. And back in 2008, 2009, Darren was way ahead of the curve. He was the first one that was talking about throwing mechanics in terms of, physics and biomechanics and these kinds of things. And it just made a ton of sense to me, because a lot of these old sacred cows, like, flick the booger and pull the dollar out of the opposite pocket and those kinds of things, they're very well-meaning. They have some application, but we've just learned so much about how to throw so much better, how to generate power, how to be more accurate and those kinds of things. So it all started with, working with, as a side hustle with the Quarterback Academy. And then during that experience, I met all of these people. And one of the people who's been probably had the biggest impact on my approach to teaching throwing mechanics is Will Hewlett, who works down in Florida. He's one of the very best in the country. And, this last spring, he and Denny Thompson, out of 6 Points, they did the draft prep for Anthony Richardson. And a year prior to that, they did the draft prep for Brock Purdy. So I would go down during the draft prep sessions. But, Will really influenced the way I thought about throwing the football in terms of how we think about it now. It's changed a lot. And we're so much more focused on being rotational and these kinds of things versus how throwing mechanics used to be taught. It's been a build, Tony, over the last 15 years. And, after I stopped coaching at Hudson in 2016, I just started training more quarterbacks. I had more time, obviously. And so the business really began to grow. And then COVID happened. And in my corporate life, I worked for a business services company. And, when times get tough, services are the first thing that are cut. And so as the business was contracting, my quarterback business was blowing up. And I thought, okay, if I'm ever going to do this, now's the time to do it. And so that's why I made the call back in December of 2021 to actually, open up my business and put my sign out and get it going. So
it's amazing. And I've seen some of the work you've done, and it's just like with football, sometimes there are like a lot of nuances that you see as you watch more games, as you see how a QB throws, like what they see in the pocket, where they decide to run or decide to throw the ball or decide to pitch it off. It's like, it's almost like a science.
It's almost like a what?
Uh, it's almost like a science.
Yes, it very much is.
And talk about your work with Drew Allar. Drew Allar was a Medina graduate,
Yep.
class of 2022, who was pretty highly ranked nationwide.
Yeah. So, you know, I reached out to Drew in like the November, December of 2019. Medina had just played Eds in the playoffs. He threw for 500 yards against them. Just had a fantastic game, and I was able to see some film of him, and I could see, how much potential he had. Just the raw natural arm strength and the size. Um, and he was very poised, despite being a sophomore. But he kind of looked like a pitcher coming off a mound throwing the football. And so I knew there were things that I could do to help him. I reached out, we got connected, and he was kind of hooked right away. And so I put a video up on Twitter that just kind of like chronicled the development process for him. And one of the most interesting parts of that is that we start going really hard January 1. We got going in December of 2019, but January 1, 2020, we're going hard. And, there's a little bit of I need to take a step back to take two steps forward when you're making mechanical changes. And, that takes a little bit of time. And so January was a learning time, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. And February hits. We're starting to build a little bit of consistency. He's starting to feel it, right? Well, by early March, everything was shut down, and we're right in the middle of a change process because depending upon the kid, it can take anywhere between 3 and 5 months to really make a change where there's a comfort level, and then of course you have to build up a volume of reps to build the muscle memory. But so during COVID, I would give him things to work on, and he would send me videos, and man, did he work. Like, he was obsessed. And when we came out of it in April, and I'll never forget this, it was I don't know, would have been early April, and things were still kind of shut down, but like you could get together again. And so we were out at this grass field that hadn't been mowed, and I don't know, who knows how long. And we were just happy to be out there working. And I could immediately see, okay, he's really sort of owned this. Because I wasn't seeing some of the things I saw before, this long stride and this very pronounced tilt on his finish at the waist, and the rotational work that we were putting in, and the changes to the arm path, were starting to come together. And then right about that time, he started going pretty hard working on his body as well. So April, May, June, and July were 4 months that I'll never forget, because not only were his throwing mechanics coming together, but his body was coming together. And he was like kind of a baby doe, when I started with him, and he had these big feet and his long body, he's 6'5". It was, all of that was sort of, at play. And it was like his body came together in that 4-month span. And what you started to see was this fluid, powerful athlete who was really putting things together. And it was so exciting. And I always tell this story. The first time I actually saw him play in a game, because everything previous to that had been, in training sessions and shorts and T-shirts. His junior year, so that would have been, September or late August of 2020, they play Mentor, and they play at home. He actually gets hurt right before halftime. He rolled his ankle, but it was raining sideways at the start of the game, and he threw a field out that just blew me away. And just the fluidity and the power, and he made some other plays, and I just thought to myself, he's way better than I thought he was. And I remember very specifically calling Bill Green, who's a beat guy, a longtime recruiting guy in Ohio for the various Ohio State websites. I remember calling him saying, Bill, he's way better than I thought. He said, I told you, Brad. I told you. Because Bill had seen him earlier that summer at the one camp that Drew went to, which was it was kind of a thrown together camp down at Ohio State, I think. No, it was at some facility in Ohio. I can't remember the name of it right now. I'm sorry, in Columbus. And Bill had seen him down there, and he was really impressed, and he started writing about him. So, and then of course he had the big junior year. So, yeah. And here we are. And the most important thing about Drew is he is all about the 1% better every day. As cliche as that is, like, that's him. He works consistently. If he was a farmer, he'd be a fantastic farmer because he puts the work in, right? And I just talked to one of the coaches on the staff last night, actually, and they're just amazed at the way he prepares and the extra work. He's a grinder. So Drew's what happens when you've got immense physical talent and a grinder mentality where you think, I'm not good enough, I got to keep getting better. That's him in a nutshell. Very humble, knows that he's got to continue to get better, and these expectations that are placed on him, but nobody is harder on him than himself. So,
oh yeah, he's definitely a hard worker, and he's another great QB that came through that program. He started at Penn State. He's starting QB there. Got Danny Stoddard, a current senior. He's filling in Allar's shoes. It's like Medina's got some pretty good QBs coming up through the pipeline.
Oh yeah, Danny's a heck of a player. And his, he threw for 5,000 yards last year. Think about that. That is an insane amount. Actually threw for more yards than Drew the previous year. But like his twitch when he pulls the football down is really good. So it'll be really interesting to see where Danny ends up. Where he's going to end up, because I just think the world of his ability is just at the quarterback position. We're still somewhat caught up in measurables. So, but if somebody recruits him based on production and ability, then they're gonna get a heck of a player because he's really good.
Oh yeah, it's not about the size of the dog; it's about the size of the fighting dog. Guys like Russell Wilson, Justin Fields are 5'10", 5'9", and they're dudes that can sling it down the field, and they're dudes that can run the ball if need be.
Well, I mean, Bryce Young is an unbelievable football player. He's 5'10", 205.
Yep. And you guys got some more QBs coming in through the system. Talk to me about a couple of them.
Yeah, I would say my other college guy who's, I got a number of them, but who I'm really excited about is Brady Lichtenberg. He's down at the University of Cincinnati, and he throws an absolutely gorgeous ball. He is mentally super high football IQ, excellent decision maker. Came out of high school a little bit on the smaller side, has really built up his body, and he won the number 2 job, and he's in a great position to be a 3-year starter at Cincinnati, and just a fantastic football player. Throws a tremendous ball. This year's senior class, I've got 3 kids who have signed with, or committed to Power 5 schools. But like, I've got a ton of kids who are going to either be at the group of 5 level or D2 or D3. Like we got a bunch of kids that are going to be playing, college football. Just great players, right? Who have really worked through the process. And, but I would say in the senior group, the guy who's probably established himself the most is Ethan Grunkemeyer. he's a great story because he's another one who just kept getting better. And when he first committed to Penn State, I don't think people were excited about a 3-star committing to Penn State, but then he blew up at the Elite 11 event where he just showed out, and you know, he's got top 5 arm talent in that group, just in terms of velocity and accuracy and spin. Like, he's tremendous, and his body he's a 6'2.5". He's about 200 pounds right now. Like, once he gets into college weight program, he is going to be a tremendous player. But like, he can sling it all day long. But again, another guy where he's really special is his mindset, like how he manages himself and how he puts in the work and how he develops, and just the discipline to do what you have to do to be elite. So he's doing a fantastic job. I'm super excited about the 25 class. I think it's probably the best quarterback class that Ohio has ever had. Now, I moved here in 2001, but knowing enough about who's come out of here, in fact, I talked to Ed Warner. Sorry, not Ed Warner. One of the guys at Ohio State who's been around a long time. And he agreed. He goes, yeah, I've never seen a quarterback class like this one coming up in 2025. So, so many good ones. And then 26 has a number of really exciting prospects as well. So we got a pipeline, Tony, and then we got, 27 coming up, and there's some outstanding prospects there as well. So very excited about not only the high-end talent, but the consistent talent and the volume of talent that I've got on the roster here. Very exciting. And so when college coaches reach out, that was another benefit of COVID was I had a lot of college coaches reaching out that I never thought I would ever talk to because they couldn't travel. So they wanted to know about kids and, hey, can you send me some training video and that kind of thing. So my process now is that I've got this network of coaches that I can connect with, and I've built the trust where they know that I'm going to send kids who can play for them and are worthy of spending the time, invest the time to vet them. So yeah, it's coming together.
Yep. It's when a great plan comes together, and just think about the kids who haven't come through yet. And I see you've got some kids from West Virginia, PA, and even as far away as Texas coming up.
Yes. Yep.
That's when you have a great program where kids as far away as Texas and PA are coming up and wanting to be part of this and wanting to learn all the mechanics.
Yeah, it surprised me, but my issue right now is really being able to like process all the demand. So I just can't like pick people up. I've got a kind of a waiting list, and so there's a little bit of that I have to deal with. But yeah, it's been great. There's no question about it.
That's amazing. And Brad, thank you for coming on and speaking with us. And if you have anything else you'd like to share before we close out, floor is yours. If you have anything you want to share or a good message or where.
Yeah, a couple of quick things. One is, Ohio isn't necessarily known as this state that produces quarterbacks for colleges. It has been viewed as a fantastic recruiting ground, right? It still is, but it's been interior guys, linebackers, right? This kind of thing.
Cornerbacks, wide receivers, athletes.
Yeah, exactly. And so we've got a lot of talented kids here who aren't in situations like other kids who are in states where they can train for quarterback year round, right? And they can go to 7-on-7s. And so the things that are available in say Texas, things that are available in the Southeast, like Georgia is a great state. They have a ton of great quarterback coaches there, and they have people who are, really invested in football and they want that, what I mean? Like it's like the perfect kind of grounds there. And then the traditional state, like a California, that drives. So, and my goal is that we've got a ton of talented kids. I want to provide a resource for kids to get elite training like other areas of the country get. And if they're committed enough, like have the opportunity to play, at the D1 level, but really playing college football is special. It's not just about D1, and because of the relationships that you build, the way that playing a sport disciplines you as a college student, the things you have to learn in terms of time management and the need to be able to work with people and how important, of course, that is when the real game starts, when they're out there as career adults, that kind of thing. So I'm excited about what we're offering for kids to get better. I want to make a name for Ohio in terms of the quality of kids that we can put out that are as good as anywhere in the country, because we got a ton of them. But I think in terms of like another, I don't know, parting wisdom for any young quarterbacks who are thinking about this, like if you can spend some time every day moving the chains, getting better at this position, it pays off big, right? And so it's kind of having this mindset of how am I going to be great at this position when, one, I'm going to, I'm a student first, I've got family responsibilities, I'm a friend, I've got all these different roles, but to be elite at quarterback, unless you're an absolute freak, like it's building your body, it's building your throwing mechanics, it's, understanding the mental sides of the game and how important those aspects are. And yet, I don't think it's a good idea that kids specialize in football. Like I think, Drew Allar will tell you that part of what has made him good as an example with his different arm angles is all the baseball he played, through ninth grade. I didn't have to introduce him to arm angles. Like he already knew how to do it. I helped him optimize it, but like he practiced that by playing third base for all those years. And then basketball and spatial awareness. I've gotten to know Kurt Warner, have developed a good relationship with him. And I went out to his house last summer and we were talking about processing speed. And I said, you were known as someone who could get the ball out fast. And he says, well, he goes, yeah, that's true. A big part of that was just playing the arena football league for so long. Like you have to be able to get the ball out fast. And that makes sense. But I'm like, how did you increase your processing speed? How did you improve your anticipation? He says, man, I don't know. It's just like I know for a fact all the basketball I played, because he's one of those guys who loves to play hoops, and he plays it all off season. And, the whole idea of having spatial intelligence and, spatial awareness and angles and all those things, that anybody who's played basketball would immediately connect with and relate to, because it's so good for your peripheral vision and your awareness and all those kinds of things. And so I bring all this up because I think kids shouldn't specialize in just football. Now, if you want to get, into your high school career later and you feel like, hey, I need to take this thing to the next level. I've had one of those kids that did that. Braden Rogo from Tiffin Columbian, 3-sport athlete. While he didn't play baseball this past year, worked his butt off on his body and sharpening up his mechanics, and went out and earned a scholarship to Akron University of Akron. And had a number of other people who were really, really interested in him based on his camp performances. So I think it's situational, but I think through early high school, they should be trying to play as many sports as they can. And, but understanding how to manage your time so that you can invest a little bit of time every day, whether it's 15 minutes or it's, in some cases 2 hours, whatever that is, to put the work in to be elite.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is great advice. That's amazing advice, Brad.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again for coming on the show. And you guys can follow Tapped In with Tony on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the YouTube channel that's under my name, and just search Tapped In with Tony, and you'll get to see some of the episodes as well. Thanks again for coming on, and see you guys later.